What's up, Devy devotees? It's EK back with the Devy dose. I am lucky enough tonight to have the one, the only Kyle Larson on with me. What's happening, Kyle?
Not much. Making it through. Trying to stay awake. I think I've had 4 or 5 cups of coffee today, so just finished another one. So
Kyle, those are rookie numbers. You got to pump them up in this racket and get those numbers up. I know Kyle's sweating the Tennessee ball game. That's going to start soon. So thanks for taking time away from wringing your hands over the beginning of this game to talk some college football and to talk some Devy and some C2C tonight. And I'm fired up. We got the American, the one, the only, the American conference tonight, adding it to our big board. Is this the last G5 conference that we needed? Did we collect them all?
Yep. I mean, there's some independents that we may miss, but I don't even think is anybody. I mean, Notre Dame's independent, but like BYU's still independent, aren't they?
We haven't talked about BYU yet. Yes, so we'll have to roll them in somewhere. Maybe one of the smaller P5 conferences. Or just do like a 20-minute show.
The Pac-8.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, BYU to me kind of belongs with the Pac for whatever.
Yeah, we'll just add them to the P5 conferences they belong in. So we'll talk about Notre Dame and the ACC and the American. I mean, this conference is just like not what it was last year or the year before or any year before. I mean, they added 6 teams from the CUSA. They lost their 3 best teams in Houston, Cincinnati, and somebody else who I'm blanking on. And
threw me for a loop, and I started looking at it. And I was like, these teams aren't the American. Like UTSA threw me for a loop, and
and I mean, coaching changes too, just all over the place. A lot of new head coaches, a ton of new offensive coordinators, and so just a totally different change for this. Oh, UCF is the other team they lost. All 3 of their good football teams. UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, the 3 teams in the American that have been ranked. Or than 2.
Yeah, right. I always think of all of them as borderline P5 teams. Half the time I think UCF is a P5 team. Kind of sucked the past couple of years. So you want to lead off with coaching changes? There are a lot, and you certainly know these better than I. You know these coaching trees better than I do. Put it all on your broad shoulders there, Kyle.
Yeah, this is where most of my research went for this conference, so I'll gladly give you all my information right here. We'll start with Florida Atlantic. Willie Taggart finally out at Florida Atlantic after some not so impressive years, and he'll be replaced by Tom Herman, the former Texas head coach. Herman, not super successful at Texas. I mean, pretty all right. But his passing games there were always pretty impressive with Sam Ehlinger. Ehlinger had 3 straight top 10 CFF finishes. So the quarterback is definitely a position we're going to watch at FAU. We'll get into that later. And then the slot wide receiver is usually the wide receiver you want in this offense, especially at Texas. I mean, guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey, Devin Duvernay were all CFF wide receiver 1s. So definitely dudes to target there. North Texas. This one came as a surprise to a lot of people who follow North Texas. They fired their head coach, Seth Luttrell. He'd been there for quite a few years, been pretty successful, honestly, in terms of North Texas expectations. But they decide to replace him with Washington State offensive coordinator Eric Morris. I think a lot of Washington State fans were happy to see Eric Morris leave, even if he was leaving for a head coaching position. So definitely a bit of a head scratcher. More seems like a lateral move, maybe even a step down. They run very similar offenses. They're both from the Mike Leach coaching tree, both running the air raid. Morris doesn't have any experience as a FBS head coach. Has only been an FBS play caller for one season. And Washington State last year, I mean, Cameron Ward was all right for CFF. The wide receivers, no one wide receiver really separated himself in that offense last year. So expect the receiving work to be spread out. The quarterback play to maybe be all right, but they don't really have anyone on the roster that's super encouraging like Cameron Ward was.
Yeah, the only guy you wanted at Washington State last year was Nakia Watson.
Yeah, and Jalen Jenkins once Watson went down, but
yeah.
South Florida. This is one I really like. I think this is quite possibly the biggest offensive coaching upgrade in the entire college football landscape this year. Head coach Jeff Scott has been fired and replaced by former Josh Heupel offensive coordinator Alex Golesh. He's been Josh Heupel's OC since his last season at UCF, so that's 3 years now. I assume he'll run something very similar to what UCF and Tennessee have been running. That means they'll run a ton of plays. They'll throw the ball often. Quarterbacks and wide receivers will eat. Running backs will be all right. I mean, they're going to score touchdowns. So they're going to score touchdowns, but because of how fast they play, they're going to swap in and out a lot. So it'll be a committee with like some boom weeks, but they'll be hard to predict. Tennessee in the past 3 years has had 2 top 5 CFF wide receivers. And in that other year where they didn't have a top 5 CFF wide receiver, Cedric Tillman was the wide receiver 17. Obviously, Hendon Hooker has been an elite CFF quarterback asset over the past 2 years. And then the other thing to note is that tight ends, not really a big deal in this offense at all. So look at the quarterback and the wide receiver position in South Florida. Moving on to Navy, they fire their head coach and promote their defensive coordinator to head coach. He brings in offensive coordinator Grant Chestnut from FCS Kennesaw State. Chestnut has 8 years of OC experience at Kennesaw. He'll still be running the triple option. That's kind of a requirement by Navy. Like, he doesn't even have a choice if he wanted to run something else. But he does come from a spread option background at Kennesaw State. So they're talking about, running a few more plays out of the shotgun, which is something they've basically never done before, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, Navy's trying to figure out how to make the triple option still work. And after, tackles aren't allowed to block downfield anymore. So an interesting change, but I doubt it's a big deal. They'll probably have like 10 pass attempts per game instead of 4. So not much. The quarterback will likely be the leading rusher. Could maybe be fantasy relevant if they actually figure out how to make it work, but I doubt it. Maybe a running back, takes over and kind of like Brad Roberts did at Air Force. I mean, but like that's best case scenario, and we haven't seen that at Navy in a while. UAB, they hired Trent Dilfer as their head coach. This one is wild. Trent Dilfer, vastly inexperienced. I mean, he was a high school head coach last year, and basically gets the job based on name recognition and his experience as an NFL quarterback.
But, right. And a talking head on the TV, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They also hired his office coordinator Alex Mortensen. He's also very inexperienced. He's never called plays at any level. So it'll be interesting to see. The UAB definitely won't be as run heavy as they were. There's the Wayne McBride's not going to get replaced with somebody else who's going to have his kind of opportunity share. there's been some proof that Dilfer can coach the quarterback position. He had a quarterback, Hank Brown, at Lipscomb Academy in high school, who is committed to Auburn now and going to Auburn this year. So he developed him a little bit, so maybe he can develop a quarterback at UAB, but I don't think there's that much of a correlation there, so we'll see. Tulsa is next. They get a new head coach and offensive coordinator. New head coach is Kevin Scott, and the new offensive coordinator is Steve Spurrier Jr. No, his name's not Kevin Scott. It's Wilson. I think Kevin Scott's the old head coach. I think I just mistyped this. But Wilson is the former Indiana head coach from 2011 to 2016, and the most recently Ohio State offensive coordinator from 2017 to 2022. Steve Spurrier Jr., obviously experience at South Carolina under his dad, Steve Spurrier, as well as being the wide receivers coach for Mike Leach at Mississippi State and Washington State. A lot of this offense is going to be unknown. Spurrier, obviously under Leach, didn't call plays, didn't create the offense. That was Leach's baby. Same kind of thing for Wilson at Ohio State. That was Ryan Day's baby. Ryan Day was calling plays. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this offense. I expect hiring Steve Spurrier Jr. that he wants to run some kind of air raid. So you could see some impressive play from quarterback. Maybe a wide receiver breaks out. I mean, Wilson had some very impressive wide receivers at Ohio State, but you never know how much of that is him and how much of that is Brian Hartline or Ryan Day. So I'd expect some form of air raid. A pass-catching running back could be interesting at Tulsa, a la Max Borghi or Jaquavius Marks or whoever you want to bring up who's caught passes in the air raid system before. UTSA replaces their offensive coordinator. Justin Burke is the former special teams coordinator, getting a promotion to OC, so it'll probably be a very similar system as they've run in recent years. Recently, they've just been churning through in-house hires, making them OC for a couple of years, and then they get promoted to P5 jobs. I believe most recently, this last one's going to Oregon, so Jeff Traylor has just been mentoring these guys and letting them move up. So I doubt anything will change. They'll probably still be a pretty good offense, especially with the talent they're returning. Charlotte gets a new offensive coordinator as well, and Mike Miller. He is the former co-OC at Maryland and the tight ends coach. He has almost no track record. Didn't call plays at Maryland, so not sure what to expect. I mean, he's a Dan Enos disciple, I guess, because he was under Enos at Bama as a graduate assistant and then followed him to Maryland. So maybe something like that Maryland, Alabama type offense, but a lack of talent for sure at Charlotte. So no idea what to expect there.
Yeah.
And then Tulane, this one is pretty unimportant. They get a new offensive coordinator whose name is Slade Nagel. He's not actually a new offensive coordinator because he was a tight ends coach last year. And last year he was given play calling duties about week 4 or 5 and was calling plays as the tight ends coach for most of the season. So expect pretty much everything to be the same as last year, as the end of last year for Tulane. So.
Dude, that is a mouthful. I appreciate you doing that. Holy moly, I don't think we've done a conference yet that had nearly this many significant coaching changes, right? I mean, that was just every freaking team in the conference, basically. 8 out of 11 or say 8 out of 12, something like that, 8 out of 14. But there's some big ones there, I think, you got me excited about
the Florida teams.
Yeah.
FAU and USF.
Yeah, USF really. I mean, if he can pull off the Heupel style offense there, I think there's some gold to be mined. Um, yeah, and and FAU, that's really interesting too. Um, so, all right, with that, I will try to give you a rest for a second. I'll lead off on the quarterbacks, and if you guys haven't watched any of our big board series so far, we're going to talk about who left, who transferred in, who transferred out, and I know it's a lot of information, but we're really trying to be thorough and make sure no one slips through the cracks. That at least not all these guys are guys you're going to want to like be drafting or expending significant capital on, but a lot of them are guys you should be watch listing, you should be aware of, and and there's some guys in here that are definitely, they're stepping into positions where they might really be, fantasy gold, even though no one is talking about them. But let's start off with quarterbacks. We lost Chris Reynolds from Charlotte. He was good. He was a rushing guy. Was obviously successful enough to keep Elijah Spencer producing last year, and before that it was someone else year before. Holton Allers.
He had like 3 wide receivers last year between Spencer, Dubose, and Tucker.
Yeah, Dubose was really good too, and Victor Tucker, right? And Holton Allers moved on. Was Allers anything special, really, Kyle? I didn't really think so.
Yeah,
Steady.
All right. He was the kind of guy a fill-in,
Yeah,
a little bit of rushing.
Right. Yeah, and N'Kosi Perry, kind of the same thing. Was a good college quarterback. Played a lot of seasons. Ran a little bit. He was a startable quarterback for the past couple of seasons. A little up and down, but was a guy you could plug in there, and that was cheap. So with some opportunity available at those spots, and there are some bangers coming back here. Frank Harris is just the obvious one. He's a top 5 or 6 CFF QB, I'd say. Probably not a Devy guy. He's got to be 23 already, right? 24. He's old, man. It's a season 6 for Harris. But it's tough to argue about 27 plus points per game. Tough to argue about 4,000 yards, 32 touchdowns, and then production. On top of that, last year he went for 609 on the ground. That's some real production. It's nothing to sneeze about. And then the other guy that coming back that I think is super exciting is Michael Pratt, who's now going to be in his 3rd year at Tulane, and really has progressed every year in every possible way. He's gotten better as a passer. He's gotten more productive every year. They're trusting him more and letting him do more. Last year he was good for 20, 24, 25 points a game, 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, almost another 510 tutties on the ground. You got anything about any of those guys, Kyle?
These are both great CFF quarterbacks. They're both top 10. Pratt, the QB 9 last year. Frank Harris, QB 5 last year. I don't see any significant changes in the offensive system, so I think wheels up again for both these guys, and I think Pratt is a pretty legit Devy guy. As far as these lower tiered conference guys go.
Yeah, he gets drafted for sure. And he could have a Malik Willis like rise, right? If he goes off this year and gets some hype. He certainly has the tools that draft analysts get excited about. All right, where do you want to throw Harris?
2.
Yeah, right. Can't really put him behind Bryn, I don't think. All right. And Pratt's, I don't know. I could put Pratt at 3. If you put him behind Bryn, I think Pratt's proved more, right?
Yeah, it's a little tough. The thing about Brandon is we just love this offense he's going into at Georgia Southern.
What schools Harris play for?
UTSA.
So you want to put Brandon ahead of?
No. Pratt outscored Van Treese last year, and Van Treese was starting for Georgia Southern.
I just think he's more talented than Bryn too.
Yeah. Van Treese wasn't good, though. I mean, Bryn is going to be better and still have almost 500 attempts, but
Yeah.
I think Pratt's safer. So
I
there's less
guarantee you, Pratt's
projection.
going first in most drafts, I would think.
That's where the edge is, though.
Yeah, no, well,
If we think Bryn is that close.
Yeah. So I guess my other couple of guys that I had here, and I might be higher on EJ Warner than a lot of people. I have found myself defending him a lot this year already. I'm just, he came up in our one of our other, sleeper late round value kind of guys shows that we did non freshman supplemental targets, and he's a true sophomore. He's Kurt Warner's son. He's got pedigree. He's got name recognition. He's going to get access to resources that other kids just are not going to get. Your father is a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he ended the year just going nuclear. 527 yards, 5 tutties against East Carolina. Not a great defense, but 486-3 against Houston, and you don't see true freshmen put it together that quickly, that often, and he was playing with no talent around him. I mean, his top 2 wide receivers were tight ends, and most of them had not done anything earlier in their career to gather any attention. So I'm pretty stoked about Warner, and man, he's still cheap in supplementals. I get him like 8th, 9th round, and I think he might have some legitimate Devy upside. And the other guy that is worth talking about, I think largely because of the coaching change, if he gets the job, and that's an if, is Gary Bohannon to the USF. Was okay last year, threw like 16 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, runs a little bit. I just really think the theory here is that if he gets the job, you want the guy in that air raid offense. So,
yeah, absolutely. I like Warner. I mean, there's definitely something there when you can do that as a freshman. And then the one guy I have written down for returners is Seth Hennigan at Memphis. He's been productive for the last 2 seasons. I mean, 21.3 points per game in 2021, 20.75 in 2022. Good for QB 20 last year. He's a very solid CFF asset, definitely a guy who you can have as your QB3, QB4 in those types of leagues and plug in on bye weeks. Not really a Devy guy, though. I mean, he's pretty weak is the word I'm looking for. He doesn't have like a cannon of an arm. He's not really mobile. Those are the types of things that NFL scouts love. But he's a good college quarterback.
I like Hennigan, man. He had some big games too. His first year starting. I feel like it came down a little bit last year, down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I mean less weapons. I think. I mean, they lost that guy who's on the Steelers now.
I can't help you. They lost a wide receiver to the Steelers?
Yeah, 2 years ago. Or a year before last year. Really good CFF guy. Shoot.
Oh, I know you're talking about the little guy.
Yeah.
Geez. Yeah, he was good. Calvin Austin.
Calvin Austin.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, I had hopes for him in the NFL too. I definitely, not doing much so far, but he's been hurt too. So I don't know where he fits into that wide receiver room, but probably returns kicks, I would think.
So Warner and Hennigan.
Yeah, so I think Warner is like right in that DeQuan Finn rate. I put Pratt above Finn and I put Warner right behind him, but I feel like Warner could be. I could argue for Warner being the Devy QB1 of this group. I think everyone else will tell me I'm crazy right now, but I just see a path for him to do that where I don't really see a path for most of these guys to early round draft capital out of the G5, but I'll leave him right there in the middle. But where do you put him for CFF? I mean, would you rather have Brett Gabbert or EJ Warner?
Oh, you're all the way down there?
You think you'd rather have Kayvon Cordero or EJ Warner?
No, I think I'd put him in.
Grayson McCall for CFF, definitely. Really, Taylor Green, I could go with. I could go in that range ahead of Basilak. I thought you were really high on Basilak though, because of the offense there.
I think I'd have him above Granger, below Green,
Above Granger,
or above Green.
Yeah. I mean, I'm cool putting him above Green too. I think Green's got a lot of hype that he hasn't proven in talent for sure. And Hennigan, where do you want to put Hennigan? Like Hennigan's better than Warner, right? For CFF, or I mean, I don't know. I guess he's.
I think the projection is that Warner is better.
Yeah, I think the talent's there.
Like the ceiling is way higher for Warner.
Yeah, but 505 with a high school skill weapons around him. So where do you put Hennigan here?
I think Hennigan's the same level of safe as Darren Granger. Like they're both guys who are going to get 21 points per game.
Yeah. I was looking at Basilak. Like I probably put him ahead of that. Hennigan. And where do you like Warner for Devy? Do you like where I put him or?
Yeah, I think I'd have Pratt above Reed though.
I'm fine with that. I mean, I think Reed definitely gets drafted, but I doubt he gets drafted highly, right?
Yeah, and Pratt could.
I could have that third round type projection. I mean, frankly, I would put Warner above him too, but I didn't know if everyone else would think I'm crazy. Crazy if I put Warner above him?
Above Reed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put him ahead of Flynn, but all right. Missing anyone? Bohannon? Do you want to rank Bohannon at all?
I would love to rank the USF quarterback.
Honestly, it sounds like it's Brown to me. So let's roll a little bit, and then we'll go back to ranking guys. So those were our returners, and then we had some guys in the stepping up category. Some of it's pretty confusing. So Byram Brown, USF, stepped in when Bohannon got hurt last year. It was him, one other kid. The other kid medically retired. Byram Brown threw 6 touchdowns over 2 games as a starter. One of them was 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The other one, I think he threw a couple of picks too. Kind of sounded like if the season started today, it's Byram Brown there at USF. So honestly, and what the coach said, there's literally a quote about this in one of the last articles I read. And the coach said, Jerry hasn't had a chance to compete yet. So he wasn't willing to write him off. But Bohannon threw the same number of tutties and interceptions last year. I don't know if that's the profile of a guy that I'm going to project to throw for 4,000 yards this year. He runs a little bit too, but I think Byram had some ability too. So there's other guys in that category. Jacob Zeno at UAB. I don't know. We have no idea what's going on there. Jacob Zeno is a retread from Baylor. I don't know. And then you had a couple of guys here. I had Preston Stone. Obviously, he gets a ton of hype for a reason. He's going into that SMU offense that is just always, that's Lashley, right, Kyle?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that is just a prolific offense. Also a prolific offense that sends guys to the NFL every single year. They have a wide receiver get drafted this year, 2nd round guy. And that's not shocking coming out of there. They're a feeder school for the NFL out of the G5, which is pretty surprising. So we think Preston Stone's going to blow up this year. All this CDC.
Yeah. Just to really put the icing on the cake here, Stone was a decently high 4-star.
4-star
Out of high school. Yeah, was committed to Oklahoma at some point, I believe, but ended up going to the hometown team SMU um, back when Sonny Dykes was there. But chose to stay after Dykes left for TCU, and the rest is history. Ready to start now that Tanner Mordecai's out and headed to Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, and Mordecai was prolific there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's easily 25 points a game. So who else did you have in that class that you wanted to talk about?
That I want to talk about? Nobody.
I guess I
I
had
know.
Jalen Braxton, probably the starter for Tulsa. He's a junior, threw for 10 touchdowns last year in relief of Davis Brin. Runs the ball a little bit too. He's getting a new coach in the air raid system. So maybe he's a guy that has the kind of rise that we saw Davis Brin have last year, where no one was really talking about him in the preseason, and he turned into a pretty nice CFF asset for you.
I like that. I have Mason Garcia at Eastern Carolina. He's been backing up Holton Allers for 3 years now, I believe. So ready to take the mantle most likely. And then I have Jace Reuter at UNT, North Texas. He started his career at UNC. I think he's in his like 5th or 6th year now, so probably going to start this year and be done. But air raid at UNT could be interesting. I don't know. I feel like I've been trying to convince myself of UNT's air raid for a number of years, Austin on and whatnot, to no avail. So not
Usually have a
so
running
rushed.
back you want, right? UNT, I feel like they usually have a
Not
running
even.
back.
Not even.
They did a couple of years ago. They had the guy that was like 25 and was still in college and was catching passes.
Maybe. We'll have the transfers in here too, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Jalen Jones transferring to Charlotte from Bethune Cookman. Charlotte has like a 6-man competition. The coach is like, yeah, it's a totally open competition. Everybody's on the table. But Jalen Jones last year threw for 2,200 yards and 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, as well as running it 131 times for 574 yards and 5 touchdowns. Dual threat guy, played at the high school where the new head coach coached 3 years ago. So some familiarity with the coaching staff could get him the job there at Charlotte, but no idea if that's worth anything.
Yeah. I mean,
Case,
Browns was useful.
yeah, but totally different philosophy. Like, I just don't know what they're going to do. Casey Thompson, the big name here, heading from Nebraska, formerly from Texas, to FAU. This is a guy who I think has proven that he's a Power 5 level talent, at least all right. So I think he's a little overmatched in this conference and will probably show that with FAU. And as I said, Tom Herman had success with Sam Ehlinger at Texas, turned him into a CFF star. I think he can do the same thing for Casey Thompson against this low level of competition. And I think they have a decent wide receiver core coming back to help him out.
Yeah. I'm excited about Casey Thompson. He's a guy that he's owned in a lot of leagues, but not in all of them. I've definitely been sneaking him onto my rosters at the end of the supplementals where I can. I mean, he's an easy cut if they suck, but I think he puts up some big numbers because he runs a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then I guess while we're talking about it, I mean, you got JT Daniels at Rice, whatever. He was like a high 4-star. He wasn't even that bad when he was at Georgia, just wasn't consistent, I guess. But at Rice, does he go? Whatever. Could he throw 30 touchdowns this year to McCaffrey? I don't know. And then you had the one JUCO guy, or was he freshman?
True freshman. Israel Carter at USF, high 3-star, I believe. Dual threat quarterback, legit athleticism, great arm. He had P5 offers, was originally committed to Arizona before I believe the coaching staff changed, and that kind of soured him. But I like Israel Carter quite a bit.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting in that Hypolisk offense. and this guy is not getting hype. So, yeah, super interesting there. All right, what do we do with these guys? Zeno, I don't care about. I don't want to rank him. Stone, though. Stone goes high, right?
I think, yeah. I think
Above Cordiero, below
for
Cordiero.
CFF, man, the fact that Cordiero's on this list just feels wrong. It feels like he shouldn't be in college.
7th year, 6th year.
I think Stone for Devy is like top 4.
And Reed?
Yeah. Like it's pure projection, but I think he has pedigree.
Yeah.
CFF, I think above Warner, at least.
Call? No, I'll put him there, but I could easily see him surpassing those guys. But I mean, McCall's done it, right? Cordio does it every year, right?
Clark's done it. Finn's done it. Bryn's sort of done it.
But Mordecai last year, like if Mordecai was an SMU, where would we put him on this list? I'd probably put him above Cordiero and Rourke.
Was he that good?
I thought he was. Maybe he was just like boom games that I'm thinking of, but
I feel like he's been good in the past, but he was just like kind of all right last year.
I want to say his first year was really good. 25 points a game's first year, 22 and a half last year. Completion percentage went down, touchdowns went down. Yardage was about the same. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'm comfortable with Stone there. Yeah, I mean, I could argue even putting Warner over him, but I'm comfortable with him there. I think it's a tier. You know what we should probably do when we're done? Is tier this all out, rank tiers. Oof. That's probably what makes the most sense here.
Oof.
Take our day and we'll set that.
Yeah, we're gonna have a 6-hour show fighting over.
No, he's tier 3. All right, let's not get stuck here. Hennigan, we got those guys. Braylon Braxton. I mean, Bryn was pretty good last year, right? Bryn was good for 25 a game.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to put him?
I think right below Legis, maybe.
Bryn was 15 points a game last year.
That's not super encouraging.
That's not encouraging. Why did I
think Cole Snyder was like 18 last year.
So we're not putting this guy that high. We'll throw him on the list though, right? Put him down there in that Hopkins range. Chandler Rogers.
I mean, I think he's interesting with the system, but
Mikey Keene range.
Yeah,
I'm going to Mikey Keene range. Braylon Braxton. All right. Sorry.
I think Bryn was just bad against good teams last year.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
And good against bad teams.
Yeah, Jacksonville State, he destroyed. NIU, he destroyed. Wyoming, he destroyed. And then, yeah, he got to
Cincinnati and Memphis, he went negative.
Yeah, that'll hurt your averages, right?
Yeah. I don't think that offensive line was like prepared for those types of teams, but
so say Byron Brown gets the job and he's a competent college quarterback. We like him. We like him more than Legas.
Oh yeah, I think I'd have him ahead of Granger.
I can get with that. I mean, but like we're projecting a lot too, though. So are you really going to take him ahead of Granger in a draft right now?
I mean, pretty much everybody goes ahead of Darren Granger in drafts right now.
Oh, that's true. I haven't drafted any of those guys.
Which is a travesty. Like, getting Granger in the last round is perfect because he's going to get you 21 points a game. But
that's a great kind of arbitrage play. So this is a guy with some real upside, though, right? So I think we're pretty good with him there. And then do you care about any of these other guys? I definitely put Casey Thompson.
Oh yeah,
he could blow up.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that same range.
Ahead of Warner, I think.
He lasts longer in drafts, I'll tell you that. But in Devy drafts at least. But I guess Warner has some upside, so I'm cool with that.
I mean, Thompson was like legit scoring points at Nebraska, right?
He was good in Nebraska. He's gonna run amok at FAU. I mean, does he have anything to throw to?
Yes.
All right. And then Israel Carter, I feel like, goes on the Devy list, at least, at the bottom of it, right?
Yeah, I think Jalen Raynor needs to be on the bottom, but yeah.
I put Frank Harris on there, just thinking maybe he gets day 3 capital and starts again.
No, I think that's good.
All right. Are we off quarterbacks? Any parting shots on quarterbacks here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, running backs definitely had some guys depart with some serious production. I mean, this is a lot of production lost here. Dwayne McBride vacates 233 carries, 1,713 yards, 19 scores. Yeah, it's a different system though. And is there anyone filling that void? We'll talk about that in a minute. Deneric Prince was good, not a world beater, but I mean, gosh, he's in an NFL camp. Ty Spears, obviously, kind of like the biggest name here, guy that got day 2 capital. I think he left behind. I think he went for 1,200 yards last year, if I recall correctly, on the ground, and I think he caught quite a few passes too. And then Keaton Mitchell, right, was an uber producer for CFF.
15 touchdowns last year for Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And he was fun to watch too, man.
Fast as shit.
Yeah. And then top returners. I only had one, and then I'll let you have it. But a Kevorian Barnes, Utah, only 10.7 points per game, but he didn't start until mid-October, right? So from that point on, he got nearly all of his production, but he still registered playing in the earlier games, so it kind of torches his averages. 135 carries, 845 yards, 6 tutties, another 10 catches, 115 yards. And 2 of his last 3 games were 130 yards plus. He's getting a lot of hype, and I think it's warranted. We've seen this system, or we've seen this school crank out running back production, and and it hasn't changed, right? Same system, new guy at the helm, but we're expecting very similar production. And Utah 14th in all of CFB last year in scoring, 36.8 points per game. That is a lot of touchdown opportunity for at least an average G5 back, and we think what we've seen from Barnes, we think he's above average for a G5 back. We think he can play ball. So what you got?
Love Kevorian Barnes. I wish he went later in drafts right now.
Goes very early.
Yeah, he's getting drafted in C2C supplementals like he has legit Devy value, and I'm not entirely sold on it, but
yeah,
definitely a CFF producer.
I think people are pivoting away from Devy earlier to CFF now than they used to. Like, people are really starting to hammer CFF assets if they're really aggressively trying to win that side in like the 4th and 5th round now, which people used not to.
3rd round. I saw Bangura go in the 2nd in the draft we're in.
Yeah, man. Dude, I was shocked when Kane took Gadsden in the first round.
Yeah, he took Gadsden and Bangura.
I mean, it's if you want to win the CFF side, Gadsden's. I mean, as long as he keeps the tight end eligibility, he's the top 3 tight end, right? He's Bowers and him. So
yeah,
I get it. It's just
they've gone Gadsden, Bangura, Milton, and Hammond. Like that is full CFF.
he took Rodney Hammond in the 4th.
Yeah.
Dude, I had him on my queue, but like not yet.
Like that's one of those teams that's run half and half. So he's gonna screw over his teammate in the NFL side, but he might win the CFF side.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You win the CFF side once or twice, you're free rolling your team for 4 or 5 years, right? Like, but that's pretty extreme. There's no NFL upside, right? Maybe Gadsden, right? But I don't know. Feels like a tweener.
Yeah, I mean Milton if he hits, but it's a big if. Anyway, back to the American. The running back returners I had are all pretty unimpressive, but they are running backs and they are returning, so we'll bring them up. Jevion Ducker for Memphis is returning. He had 9 points per game last year. Was pretty impressive at NIU the year before and transferred to Memphis and then didn't take over. Memphis has been really big on the RB by committee recently, and I don't expect that to change considering what's happened. I mean, they lost their leading rusher last year, Asa Martin, to the transfer portal, but they replaced him with Blake Watson from Old Dominion, who was their leading rusher. So I think it'll be a 3-headed backfield once again with Javion Ducker, Blake Watson, and the other returner, Brandon Thomas, who had some really good games in 2021, but has just dealt with injuries all the freaking time. Averaged 9.5 points per game last year as well. Is once again injured this spring and not practicing. Gosh, so much intrigue with Brandon Thomas, but very unfortunate string of injuries for him. And then the next guy I have is a fullback. Dabe Fofana for Navy was their leading rusher last year and was good for 9.24 points per game. So that's exciting.
Exciting stuff there.
And then last one I have is Oscar Attaway at North Texas. I believe it's his 5th or 6th season this year. He had 11.4 points per game last year. I would be a lot more interested if he caught passes, but he had like 9 targets last year. So not super impressed.
Yeah, I don't think I even want to rank. I don't know. I mean, Ducker and Thomas, if one of them gets the job, right, and we see a return to that kind of Memphis rushing game like we used to see back in the day when they were just pumping out NFL running backs.
Yeah, but that's all it's all at Florida State now.
Yeah. Oh, that was Norvell, huh?
Yeah.
So they're both talented too. I think Brandon Thomas, his freshman year, ran hard.
I think Blake Watson is talented too. Is the issue in the Old Dominion transfer? Like I think they're all going to be on the field if they're all healthy. So
what do you do with them? Do we rank them and just like, I mean, for CFF, are you taking Keyshawn King from Western Michigan, or are you taking your favorite Memphis back?
King.
Are you taking Sean Dollars or your favorite Memphis back?
Dollars.
No. Really?
Yes.
Oh,
I think he's the RB1 by far.
Okay.
And Kyrie Robinson averaged 14 a game last year, I believe.
Yeah. That's brutal, man.
I think above Lingard is fair,
but which one do you put? Sure. I think it's probably Blake Watson, but who knows? Ducker was a beast before he got there. They're all undersized, right? I mean, I think Thomas is the only one with like a, like RB1 type physical profile.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite is Brandon Thomas if he's healthy, but I don't think he is. I've just kind of given up on because of the medical.
I'm going to put Brandon Thomas / Jalen Tucker / Watson. Honestly, I think it's Watson, but maybe that's the recency effect, where he smashed last year and the other two didn't. But also he smashed because of pass catching ability. I don't know if Memphis even really wants to throw to the backs. Barnes. What do you want to do with Barnes? I put him behind Frank.
I like that. Yeah. I think we're projecting a lot with Whaley, I think, but I think it's fair.
Whaley was great that, 2 years ago though, right? Yeah. So we're projecting him for 19 points a game, Barnes, about to be in that range.
Yeah.
Jalen White had 18 and a half, all right. I'm happy with that. So stepping up, this was fertile ground, but also kind of tough to pick the guy was my experience. I think seems like it was kind of yours too. UAB, obviously someone's going to be there running the ball. Like we talked about, they have a completely unproven head coach who might be styled as a quarterback guru. We don't know. But I also kind of think, new offense, trying to put it all together. I think you lean on the run a little bit, particularly if you don't have, a standout quarterback talent, which it doesn't sound like they do. So Jermaine Brown was the RB2 there last year, but the RB2 there last year was good for 948 and 8 behind McBride. So, he's a kid that can run the ball. If he gets volume, I think he'll succeed at this level. I think we've already seen him succeed. So I think he's really interesting. I don't know. You make him the lead back. You got to figure you're penciling him in for 1,000 at least, 1,008 again. So, and then the other guy that got a little bit of hype was Demetrius Battle, who's a transfer up from FCS level. But he wasn't like a 2,000 yard a year runner at the FCS level either. He had over 3 years, he had 1,900 rushing yards. So I'm like, I don't know. He's built like a fullback, 6 foot 245. It's not usually a profile for high volume success, CFB. Unless you're Antoine Littleton. Littleton is the man. But, and then Lee Witherspoon was actually the leading rusher in the spring game. Or ran for 10 for 56. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I'm betting on Brown, and after Brown, I'm done with it. And then at Tulsa, the next guy up there was Malachi Jones. Ran for about 500 and a couple of touchdowns last year, running behind Denerick Prince. I don't know how interested I am in him. He's probably the guy there. But also, I think that the thing that was noteworthy to me is that Tulsa just lost all of their wide receivers. They lost 2 guys that combined for 2,000 yards on Stokes and Santana. So you'd have to think they're going a little bit more run heavy this year, not having anyone slot right into that.
Yeah, Jones is a wide receiver.
Oh, I put him in the wrong spot. That's why I'm confused. Talking like I know what I'm talking about too.
I like the call, but we're on the wrong position.
Malachi Jones, wide receiver, Tulsa. Look for him in your drafts. But I must have put him in the wrong spot in our show sheet. I'm sorry, everybody. Kelly Joyner, USF. I don't know. He sounded like he was the running back one. Like we said, we're kind of interested in that running back. And then Tulane, I think, was another place that had just a massive vacated opportunity. There's a couple of guys. Sounds like they're going to be in a committee. Iverson Celestine and Shade, with 2 A's. Shadi Clayton. Sounds like Clayton's Celestine's the banger. Clayton's more the lightning guy. So Clayton might have more of that Ty J. Spears role. But, I think it's anyone's guess who's really going to rise to the top there. And then the USF obviously lost Brian Batty to Auburn, who was pretty nice. And there's one other guy I had, just a name drop. There was one of the only freshmen we found that was really interesting. And this could be the guy by the end of the year at Tulane, where we're looking for a guy to step up. It was Arnold Barnes, early enrollee, touchdown in the spring game. And then Kyle found some athletic stats for the kid. And he's 5'9", 224. He benches over 300 pounds, squats 600
like
pounds.
600, yeah.
He was just deadlifting like 450 or something, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a dude. That's elite athleticism for an 18-year-old kid. And I know it sounds like he's not the first man up this year, but that's the kind of guy where if he can ball, halfway through the season, he's a hot waiver pickup because he's dominating work share in a prolific offense.
Yeah. He's not like slow either. He's not super fast, but he's not slow by any means.
Yeah. And then I had some transfers in. I think we need to talk about. I guess I'm just lumping it all in together. Braylon Presley from Oklahoma State got some hype at Tulsa. He could be a guy. Who knows? I don't know if I really care about their running back one, anyways. Shedra Lewis transferred into Tulane. And then SMU really is, I think, one of the most interesting schools on my list at this position.
Recycling P5 guys.
Yeah, but who is it? You know what I mean? I mean, I think it's Jalen Knighton. He's the most proven player there. He's good, and he's got experience in the system. Right? The head coach or the OC was at Miami a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also Kamar Wheaton, it was super highly recruited, Alabama transfer. And LJ Johnson was like the RB4 or something in his class, obviously washed out of A&M pretty damn quickly, but he's like 220 pounds and runs a 4.4. So
Kamar Wheaton, Fantasy Pros Devy RB1 a week ago.
RB1, bro, RB1. Gosh. All right, that was a lot of words. So what do you got going on at the position, Kyle?
I like Knighton. Surprised he transferred from Miami. And surprised he transferred down after last season. But I like him at SMU.
He's like the same guy as Henry Parrish, though. The same player. Knighton's a little more explosive, I think, but clearly,
I think it's Citizens' backfield, but
Citizens hurt.
He's got to come back at some point, right?
He sounded pretty hurt. Like it was.
Is he really that hurt? Is he really that hurt?
Yeah, we had oh gosh, we had the CFF guys on, and I was talking about Henry Parrish, and he was like, "Yeah, man, it's Henry Parrish because Citizen knee words are that it's not good." Sorry to burst your bubble.
Now I'm bummed.
Just ruined the night.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, like I said, Blake Watson, Old Dominion, headed to Memphis, probably in that three-headed backfield. And then Naquan Wright from Florida going to USF, highly touted recruit. Couldn't beat out Trevor Etienne, but I don't think that's a huge indictment because I think Etienne's a very good back. So if he can have a role at USF, I think it's worth something. I mean, probably like an RB 30, 40 type CFF guy. So deep roster hold, but an interesting guy. And then one other freshman I wrote down for this conference is Darrell Robinson at Charlotte. Similarly to the Charlotte quarterback transfer, he is a guy who played for that head coach in high school a couple of years back. He was a legit P5 talent with some offers and was committed to Boston College. But once his former head coach took the job at Charlotte, he decided to go to Charlotte. And Charlotte has just about nobody else in that backfield. So I like Darrell Robinson as a freshman to produce for multiple seasons. Not super interested as a Devy asset, considering he doesn't really have a elite trait,
Right.
but he's pretty good at everything.
All right, what do you want to do with these guys?
Which guy?
I think Knighton first, and I was thinking lower than Marquise Crosby, but generally in that range, like Holani or Knighton. Holani?
I don't.
Knighton
It's
can
so hard to
have all the
tell.
passes.
I just don't know what either of those backfields are.
You know what? Actually, I don't want to put Knighton above Kylan Hines. I don't think. I think that's my spot for him.
Is that indicative of us saying that Hines should be ahead of Holani too?
I don't know. Holani's going to score a shit ton of touchdowns. Is the thing. I think
Unless
we're projecting so much. Unless he doesn't, yeah.
Unless GT takes all of it. I mean, I think that's in the realm of possibilities. But
yeah.
Gosh, I really think we need to have a show at the end of this. It just argues all of this. Because we're going to have so many things where we look back and we
should probably
were we in the right
argue
mind that show?
Get together and then do a show to review it. No one wants to watch us argue for 3 hours for rankings.
Oh, I think everybody wants to watch us argue for 3 hours.
I think this Jermaine Brown kid is somewhat interesting. I'm throwing him in there like below Calvin Hill, unless you think he should go lower than that. But I think someone there is very likely to be productive. The blocking was decent last year. I haven't looked up their line rankings, but I mean, they made some holes for Dwayne McBride. It's a kid that almost ran for 1,000 yards last year already. Doesn't take much projection to give him 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, which is going to be, 16, 17 points a game, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to rank Marlon Gunn?
Oh, yeah. There's a guy we didn't even talk about yet. Marlon Gunn and Rajay Harris are the 2 returning backs at Eastern Carolina who both played behind Keaton Mitchell last year. Both had 67 carries last year, but Marlon Gunn outrushed Harris by 100 yards on his 67 carries. Has been the talk of the team during spring camp. So the projected RB1 at ECU filling Keaton Mitchell's shoes, and Mitchell just ran for 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns. I think there's more of a split than there was back last year, but I still think Gunn as the RB1 is worth something.
He's going to be in that same range, right? John Lee Eldridge or Marlon Gunn?
I think I'd put him right ahead of Peasant. I think 16, 17 points per game is fair.
I think,
Peasant was like a 15 point per game last year. Peasant was like 14 and a half last year.
Let me tell you what Peasant got in Born and Raised last year. Peasant and Born, he's 14.9. So right ahead of Peasant.
I think so.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about some of this stuff because I think Crosby's going to go for more than that. Like, if we're just rating people by, what we think they're going to get for points per game. I mean, Crosby was good last year as a redshirt freshman. Hines, do you think Hines is going to get less than 15 points a game?
No, I think Hines is like an 18, 19 points per game scorer.
Yeah. So, well, we'll come back to this. Anyone else here really needs to get ranked? I mean, we pretty much washed the Memphis guys. Knighton, Wheaton and LJ Johnson, are they still Devy assets at all? Wheaton, I guess, could be, but it's not good going down to G5. I guess it's health for him, though, more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the other name to talk about, too, I glossed over him, but Naquan Wright transferred from Florida, UCF. He hasn't done anything at Florida, but he's probably the most highly recruited guy in that backfield right now. So no mention of him in any spring game, anything like that.
No mention of any running backs, though. That's kind of the issue.
Yeah, kind of the issue. So one guy that got 57 yards. That's the guy that got the name drop. Pretty brutal. Okay, wide receivers. You want to take the graduates because they're all yours.
Not quite. I mean, Tulane loses two guys, Deuce Watson, Shaw, Wyatt, who both had almost 700 yards. Charlotte loses like six guys in total, but two to graduation, Grant Dubose and Victor Tucker. They also lose Elijah Spencer to Minnesota and the transfer portal. Isaiah Winstead and CJ Johnson both graduate at Eastern Carolina, leaving a big gaping hole there. And then Gabe Rogers graduates from Memphis, and they lose four of their top five receivers last year to graduation / the portal. Those portal guys being Javon Ivory to South Alabama and Eddie Lewis to South Carolina. And then also in the portal, the big one, Zachary Franklin leaving UTSA for Ole Miss. And then Jair Shorter left Northern Texas for Auburn.
Yeah, we got quite a bit to talk about here too. Stepping up, guys. Seizing opportunity, we think. But just hit returners quickly. UTSA obviously has two of the best returning wide receivers in the G5. Really, Joshua Cephus has been steady producer for the past two seasons. He was good for 17.4 last year behind Franklin, kind of in like a 1B role with.
Is DeCorian Clark still in town?
I think he's still there. Yeah, I think he came back for like a fifth season.
Yeah, I think him and Clark. Clark had what, like 800 yards last year, seven
Clark
touchdowns.
Clark had 741, but 8 touchdowns. So he was kind of a deep threat touchdown guy. Right, a lot. Yeah. It was going for 15 a catch, right? And Clark's got some skills too, man. He's got ball skills. He can separate a little bit, but really it's just you throw the ball near him, he's coming down with it. And he's running dudes over too. Clark's fun to watch, man. He's got some Devy hype. I don't know if it's legit or not, but I could see it happening. Just he's like 22 already. Is the problem.
Yeah, with Franklin gone, I like both these guys to go off with Frank Harris. I mean, I think there will be a lot of production in this offense, and I think they'll both get up near 20 points per game.
Yeah, I think they both go like really in that top group there. I mean, Ashton Hawkins or DeCorian Clark. Clark was pushing 20 points per game last year. I think go right.
Yeah. I feel like Burgess and Hood are a very similar situation. I think they're both pushing 20. I feel like we have Hilaire too high in CFF.
For CFF. Well, but didn't he get a quarterback upgrade?
Yeah.
And a coordinator upgrade, right?
I think there was a graduation that was.
Yeah, and he lost the guy that was ahead of him.
Yeah,
we can bump him down below those guys if you want, but I think that's the group we got to be talking about these guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, Tyron Smith. I mean, I think he's right in there, and I think I'd put DeCorian a little bit higher. I think DeCorian would have had even more production last year, but he was a little bit banged up too. So I personally would put him in that Hawkins range, and I'd put Cephus maybe with Burgess or below Burgess and Hood.
Sure. I think you want to put like Clark wide receiver 2 out of that group and Cephus right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see putting Horton over him, but yeah, you're right. These guys both just lost a 1,200-yard receiver next to them, and they were already that high. So, yeah, I think DeCorian Clark could easily be
also. Did we miss that Tyron Smith transferred to A&M, or did he transfer back? He transferred back, yeah.
Yeah, he went, and then he came back.
Silly.
Yeah. Silly. No, why? He wasn't going to play there.
I know, but it's just silly that he did it at all.
No, I'm sure the coaches talk like, hey, better opportunity for you, right? And then he got there and it was like, dude,
he got the bag and dipped.
Yeah, I'm not playing over Moose Muhammad. I'm not playing over freaking Evan
Nice
Stewart
Smith.
ever. Anaya Smith's the same guy, but better. Just, it was smart for him to come back. Hopefully he made some money. A couple, yeah, maybe, I don't know. A couple of guys here to talk about Trey Shropshire in an offense that pretty much only ran the ball, went for almost 1,000 yards. He was in the portal and then pulled out. And then you had a couple.
Yeah, I think Shropshire's pretty legit. The offense is so much of a toss up to me.
Yeah, who's throwing the ball? How much are they throwing it?
Yeah. I have a couple of guys that I really, really like for CFF, and the first one is LeJohntay Wester at FAU. He's the wide receiver 34 in the nation last year with 17.7 points per game. I think he got an offensive scheme upgrade going from the guy whose name I'm totally blanking on to Tom Herman, and I think he got a quarterback upgrade from Perry to Casey Thompson. So I'm super excited about LeJohntay Wester. I think he fits that Devin Duvernay role for Herman and that slot role, and I think he's a legit top 10 CFF option, if not top 5. Really, really love LeJohntay Wester. And then the other guy I think we both are on the same page about is Luke McCaffrey, CMC's younger brother over there at Rice, catching passes from JT Daniels or somebody else this year. And just started playing wide receiver last year and went for 58, 723, and 6, good for 16.8 points per game. So excited about McCaffrey for sure.
All right, where do you want to put them? McCaffrey above Ricky White for me. Is he above Wiglitz for you?
I think so. I think right there is perfect.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's a tier between Cephus and Wiglitz, so I think McCaffrey fits in perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I won't be surprised if he goes for 1,500 yards this year. I just won't. I also won't be surprised if he goes for like 900 again,
Yeah, I think like 900 or 1,000 is projectable, and I think that's still very fair. I think that's.
So do you like Wester more than the Georgia Southern guys?
Yeah, I think Wester would be like wide receiver 4 on this list for me, if not higher.
I'm cool. So above Hawkins, above Horton.
That one's tough.
It's just tough to like. Horton's just gonna do what he did last year, and it was good. Yeah, it was good last year.
And you almost expect the offense to improve around him.
Yeah.
Because Millen just had no time last year and was not acclimated.
Put Luke near the bottom of our Devy rankings.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to play in the NFL, right? Just like, even if the practice squad guy, he's going.
Clark. I think Clark and Cephus are both Devy guys.
I put Clark above Cyrus Allen, below Ashton Hawkins.
I think it's fair to have him above Hawkins. I mean, Hawkins is a little all right.
I mean, just Clark's old, dude.
Yeah.
He's like a JUCO guy, right?
And Hawkins is 5'10", 170. Like, is he actually going to play in the NFL?
So you want to move him down below Burgess even?
Yeah. Maybe even below Smith.
Smith's tiny.
That's true.
Smith's like 5'7".
That's true. He did almost go SEC though. Like, best conference in the world.
Almost was a wide receiver 5 on an SEC team. All right.
Hey, so, just like Alex Adams, also was once the wide receiver 5 on an SEC team.
All right. Ton of stepping up guys. I mean, Malachi Jones, I already, blew the load on that one. Lost 2 guys ahead of him with just massive production. Someone's going to catch passes there. So I think he's a guy could do some stuff this year. UAB, a guy named Taven Curry is probably the wide receiver 1, went for 63 yards in their spring game. but who knows? I mean, that's just, we don't know. We don't know what that offense is going to look like. Tulane had Jaquan Jackson kind of pop in the beat reports. And again, the top two guys are gone from ahead of him, and they lost obviously a massively productive running back. So, no saying that they're going to run the ball as much as they did last year. And he was decent last year. It's 553. And then I have a theory, because I think EJ Warner's good. Someone at Temple's going to catch passes this year. I mean, his two favorite targets last year were tight ends. We'll talk about them in a second. But Zay Baines, nominally the wide receiver one right now, caught a tutty, 45 yards in the spring game. And then DeJuan Mathis, who went to Temple as a QB transfer, transferring down from P5, is now playing wide receiver for him. And he's a big dude, and he is fast, and they're saying he is quickly learning the position. So it could be a nothing, could be a next year sort of thing, right? That he really acclimates. But like we've seen with Luke McCaffrey, and time again, guys, that these converted quarterbacks can be very successful at wide receiver or running back. So it's interesting to me. And then the last guy I had that was worth talking about here was Jordan Curley, who might be the successor to Rashee Rice at SMU, caught a couple of tutties in the spring game, was productive last year. So if he is the guy, you want Jordan Curley. You want
I think there's a lot of CFF guys preaching the name of Jordan Curley, and I think that's very, very validated. Definitely somebody who I think can step up.
Yeah. I mean, competent quarterback, system that shucks the ball, and they like to concentrate the targets on one or two guys. It's not a spread it out sort of thing. It's been an X receiver, and it's been a tight end, typically in essence.
Yeah. For me, Jalen Johnson is a very similar story. ECU loses both Isaiah Winstead and CJ Johnson. Jalen Johnson is a former Georgia walk-on going into his sixth collegiate season. Last year, he was a clear wide receiver 3, caught 26 passes for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think this offense will be slightly worse than it was last year with a new quarterback, but I still think Jalen Johnson can take over that wide receiver 1 role. He's a big-bodied dude who I think is probably athletically and physically better than most of the defenders in this conference, considering his age and pedigree. And then Jamori Macklin at North Texas is a guy I think can step up. He was a CUSA all-freshman nod last year, going with 16 receptions for 380 yards. Kind of a deep threat type player who has some interesting abilities with the ball in his hands. But UNT North Texas does return their leading receiver in Roderick Burns, who went 40 receptions for 676 yards last year. So it'll be pretty spread around, but I think Macklin is a decent prospect as a true sophomore.
That's interesting. And I had a note here. I mean, we both know that we want whoever the wide receiver 1 is for USF. The problem is we have literally no idea. We could not find a single beat report, scorecard from a spring game, anything that would tell us an inkling of who's going to take over there. I mean, last year was Xavier Weaver, was pretty good. He's gonzo. He transferred. He's at Colorado, we think. So the one guy that I saw on name drop was Coffrey Brown, but the name drop was junior wide receiver Coffrey Brown, just being, this is the guy that's been in college football the longest. He caught 4 passes last year. So, and then there was an Omarion Dollison who caught, I don't know, it was like 15 passes for 100 yards last year. He's a little guy. He's a slot guy. I feel like in that offensive system, it's often, I mean, Hyatt was a pure slot guy, but he was really more of like a slot flanker. I think a lot of times it's the X that you want there. And Coffrey Brown is kind of in the mold of his brother. right? Diami, so was an effective extra wide receiver in college football.
Yeah, Coffrey Brown, I mean, a P5 level high school recruit. So you would think moving down, he'd have the opportunity to do something at USF. So I like the call a little bit. We'll see how it goes. I think whoever we see pop off, week 1 or 2 in that offense is somebody I'm going to spend some fab on for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely watch listing these guys. And then there's a bunch of transfers that we're talking about here too. Keith Brown, who is a decent 4-star, has been sitting the bench at A&M for a couple of years. Kind of the same guy as like you said his name 5 minutes ago. The guy that's the speed.
Deuce Wants?
No, Arian Smith. Right.
Oh, Anais. Oh, yeah. Texas A&M.
Anais Smith. Yeah, Keith Brown is Anais Smith. Like it's what he is. He's at Tulane now. Tulane just lost a ton of production. He scored in the spring game. He could be a guy there. He flashed. He's the guy that's flashed in every spring game, but can't get on the field because A&M is just loaded and none of their guys are moving on. And then the other guy that's very intriguing, I have low expectations, is Dante Wright, who was like almost out of football, right, from Colorado State. I think he got removed from the team last year for academic stuff. Is going to Temple, where we just said, like, E.J. Warner's throwing to nothing right now. So if Wright can get it together, the coach did refer to him as, the most talented incoming talent.
He was very good at Colorado State. I mean, his freshman season, he had 805 yards.
Yeah. And he just, most of his trouble's been off the field trouble, right? So if you get it together.
Yeah, averaged 100 yards a game in 3 games in 2022. So, or 2020, not 2022. But.
Yeah, we'd have a different conversation if he was going for 100 a game last year. But I mean, that's a guy if he puts it together. Like him and Warner could combine and do some damage.
Yeah, I like Dante Wright in that Temple offense a lot. As long as he stays on the field, I mean, he's the type of guy who's going to go off. And then I think some other big transfers. Jordan Hudson leaves TCU for SMU after one season at TCU where he recorded a year 1-0, but he was a high 4-star prospect last year who a lot of people had some expectations for. So I believe he preserved a red shirt last year, so he'll be have plenty of eligibility at SMU. Jaden Bradley transferred to Charlotte. As I said before, Charlotte lost their 6 highest non-running back receiving yards leaders. So this is a Charlotte roster that has almost no talent in terms of wide receivers. So I think Jaden Bradley coming down from Pitt, where he had 10 receptions for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns in 6 games last season, is someone to monitor. He's been well regarded among beats as, the best, not necessarily because of spring practice, but like before that, they were excited about him as like the best transfer they got this year. Towski Dove is transferring to Memphis from Missouri. Memphis lost their 2 or 3 best wide receivers from last year to the portal or graduation. And Dove was a starter at Mizzou last year and a team captain. He's going into his 6th year, but had 16 receptions, 240 yards, and 1 touchdown last year. So not super inspiring in terms of production, but I think he's a guy who's going to get on the field for Memphis, so maybe he can turn that into some kind of production. And then the last guy, Naeem Simmons from FCS Wagner, going to USF, competing with Coffrey Brown. He had 50 receptions for 796 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. Was an all NEC, I believe is what that conference was. Pick. He's it's hard to tell with these transfers up, especially when there's no spring game news about them, but it's just someone to watch as well. Could be that guy we're looking at a week 1 or 2 that went off.
All right. What do you want to do with these guys? I started ranking some as you were talking. I'm sure you noticed. God, where's Keith Brown? So
Tulane.
Tulane, yeah. Struggle bus.
Where'd you put Curly and Wright?
I put Curly. God, where did I put him? I lost him. I put him between Smoke Harris and Corey Rucker. I think the upside's more than that, though. And you talk about these best balls, we definitely draft for upside. And plus, like, I think
Smoke Harris and Corey. I think Smoke Harris is close to a 20-point per game guy.
Yeah, he's good, and he's available in some of these leagues too. And Pinckney we like, right? Pinckney's like 18, right? 16, 15.
I struggle seeing Pinckney and Brown both producing.
Right, I think that's the problem.
Yeah,
but without Caldwell there, right? I mean,
Chadwell, but yeah,
Chadwell, yeah. I don't know.
It's weird because I like him less than Harris, but I like him more than Pinckney.
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, should we put Harris up? I mean, that was the one you weren't here. You got no input on that. Would you put Pinckney, Smoke Harris above Ricky White, or above Colin Lacey?
I think I'd have him behind Colin Lacey, but right above Rudolph.
Above Rudolph. I'm cool with that. I don't think Justin will hate you forever. I mean, with that was one of Justin's guys. I don't think he wanted to step on our toes by our rankings were bad. So what about Curly? Would you put Curly therefore above Jared Brown?
I could see it. Yeah.
I mean, I like Brown though. I mean, he was already good. He was good as a freshman.
Yeah. I think. Yeah.
But the system, it's just. Do we know that it's Curly? I think we do. So I think I'm going to move Curly up.
Yeah, it's just kind of like ranking for 1 year versus ranking for multiple years.
Right. Well, it's a CFF though. I think we're a win now for our CFF rankings.
Yeah.
Right? We're in. Devy, obviously, I don't think.
But if Pinckney was out of the picture, I think Brown ahead of him makes sense. But
right,
he's there. So.
And I threw some of these other guys kind of in at the end. I mean, Keith, because if he is the guy there, like Tulane lost 2,000 yards, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
Tulane lost 1,300 yards. Tulane didn't have a strong wide receiver one. Thinking of Tulsa. Tulsa lost massive production.
I think I'd have scroll up a little bit.
Malachi Jones is who I wanted, and I put him on here too.
Can you scroll up a hair? I think I'd have like Shropshire above Corrales.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Just don't know what that offense didn't look like, I think he's talented for sure.
I like Cyrus Allen a lot too.
I do too, but
we're going back in time again.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think Cyrus Allen goes for 1,000 yards alongside Smoke, right?
I don't think Corrales goes for 1,000 yards alongside Hawkins.
Right. I don't think that's 1,000-yard area of the board. I think that's like sub 1,000 yards there, right? Like 800-900.
I don't know. I feel like Allen is more set in stone than Corrales, so in terms of being the wide receiver 2 there.
I agree. And then, I like him a lot as a Devy guy too, like a little low profile, cheap acquisition. He's available. Yeah. Every single supplemental I've done, I've been grabbing him. All right. So Dante Wright, is that an appropriate ranking? That. I think it reflects his upside and also the fact that he could just not play. Did we miss anyone we care about?
I think Jalen Johnson at ECU is at least 13, 14 type guy, points per game.
Yeah, that's that same range, right?
Yeah, probably definitely above Matheson, probably below Lockhart. So
that's just what I was looking. Yeah, I was actually looking right above Tyler Vaughn. That was my gut. So Jalen Johnson, ECU. All right. Anyone else here you want to rank? I threw Coffrey Brown just to have him on the list.
I don't know if Jordan Hudson's gotten any buzz since he transferred, but I liked him last year as a freshman.
He transferred after the spring game, right?
He may have.
Because I believe he played well in the spring game and then transferred.
He transferred May 21st, so yeah.
Yeah. So
he entered the portal in April, but I think that's still after.
I think he still has a shred of hope as a Devy guy, but we know that's a low percentage shot. Where's he now?
SMU.
SMU. That's interesting, man.
Yeah.
He could be a guy next year that's in that Reishi role. Like, he can move around. He can play inside. He can play outside.
I think the issue with Hudson as a recruit, though, and what kind of ruined him at TCU is he doesn't have a trait that's elite. He's an all-around guy.
Good, not great.
Yeah.
Do you want to put him on the CFF rankings?
I think we should. If he's the 2 to Curly, he's worth something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd put him right below Coffrey.
Yeah. Right below Coffrey? Yeah. I think everyone after that's pretty long shot. So,
I think in terms of other Devy guys, I think Dante Wright could resurrect himself with a big season.
End of this list, just above Hudson.
I think Ibrahim needs to be last, but yeah.
I don't even remember why we put Ibrahim on that list.
we were just really shaken for somebody to put on the list at all.
it was a small list, still is. All right. Anyone else we should rank here?
I think LeJontay Wester is worth it.
Oh, did we miss him?
And Devy.
Oh, and Devy. Where?
Above
right?
Second to last.
Got it.
He's 5'11", 165, so very thin.
And he ain't Devonta Smith, so. All right, tight end. There's a couple people worth talking about here. Reggie Brown's the next man up at Tulane, but whatever. That was good for 250 yards last year. I think the interesting guys for me were the 2 Temple tight ends. And no one really knows these names, but these were the guys Warner was throwing to when he was throwing for 500 yards in a game. David Martin Anderson is like a 5th-year player. He's a super senior, but he had over 93 yards in 2 of his last 3 games, caught a touchdown or a couple of touchdowns in one of those games. And then his running mates, Jordan Smith. Jordan Smith's the younger guy in the group. He was, I think he was a 2nd-year player last year. And he played well, averaging 50 yards and half a touchdown over the last 4 games. So, do you project Jordan Smith to get better? I think it's David Anderson this year. I think next year it's Smith. But, if that's what Temple wants to do is use the tight ends over the middle and up the seam, David Anderson could be a 600 or 700 yard tight end if that becomes, one of the top 3 targets in that offense, and Warner throws for 3,500 yards and 25 touchdowns, which I think is a simple projection. So I think those are really interesting. Deeper league, you need a tight end. You don't want to burn capital. You want someone to grab late. I think David Anderson goes on my list there. And frankly, I mean, after Dalvin Smith, there's no one I even care about on this list. I'm not clamoring to draft Trenton Welch.
No, I think David Martin Anderson is tight end 3 at least.
Yeah, I kind of think Dalvin Smith should be higher too, honestly. Smith?
I think that's fair. I think you can switch him and Holker for sure.
Holker, right? If Smith becomes like the wide receiver 3 there. Like that's 600 yards,
But
700 yards.
Martin Anderson.
I had David Martin Anderson.
I think it's David Martin Robinson.
Oh, let me look it up.
But he had 5.4 targets per game last year, which was 9th in the country. It's good for 4th among tight ends who played last year and will play again next year.
You're right.
In terms of targets per game last year, the only people he's behind who are returning are Brock Bowers, Jatavian Sanders, and Brant Kuthi. So
damn.
Yeah.
So definitely a little diamond in the rough.
I might even put him ahead of Koziol.
Yeah. Assuming that Brady Hunt remains the one there. I mean, yeah, like tough to beat that.
I mean, they're both going to play. Like, if
I think also the point is though is that you're going to have the same thing of Temple, right? The younger kid's going to play there too. But yeah, but I think you put the 1 at Temple above the 2 at Ball State, right? So I'm with you. I like that ranking. And then
I think Temple was one of the like leading teams in the nation that used like 2 tight end sets. So I think both guys are going to be on the field. Jordan Smith and David Martin Robinson. So
yes, we'll put
but Martin Robinson, I mean, 84.2% route participation rate on passing plays. Like, he's not out there to block. He's out there to catch passes. So I think David Martin Robinson's a huge diamond in the rough.
Nice little sleeper there. And then another guy, this is a guy that gets the love from our friends at Campus 2 Canton, RJ Maryland from SMU. First year as a starter, went for 306, 300 yards, 6 touchdowns. Reishi moved on. They're looking for someone to, step up, as we talked about. I think there's room for Curley to be good and Maryland to be good. And was it the Lashley system when who was the tight end there last? There was a couple of guys. Calcutta was there, right? And Calcaterra. And before him, there was another guy that went on to the NFL but didn't do anything, but that was hyper productive.
The guy at the Colts, right?
Granson? No.
Kylan Granson, yeah.
Granson was an
that's
right. Guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like he was banged up or something, but anyways, so RJ Maryland, and I love to see in tight ends that did it as a freshman, right? I mean, he's an athlete, just to really get on the field and produce right away. It's always a big plus for me. So I think I throw him in there right behind Dalvin Smith for CFF, but RJ Maryland goes on our Devy list.
Number 1.
Number 1, you think?
Yeah.
Why? Those guys are also freshmen, and they outproduced him last year. How are you putting him ahead of Brady Hunt and Koziol?
Because he's
why?
Because he's in a better offense.
And
I think he's a better built.
Do those guys have size problems? Brady Hunt's like 240 pounds. Koziol's light. Koziol's like a tweener, but
I mean,
your answer is because I'll tell you, Maryland is getting hype and these guys aren't. That's
RJ Maryland was a 4-star prospect.
Brady Hunt,
he's 6'4", 217.
217 is a terrible weight for a tight end. All right, I'll put
205 in high school. Okay, he's already put on 10 pounds. He got time to put on more.
I think Brady Hunt should be ahead of Koziol on our rankings too.
You know, RJ Maryland's dad was a 1st-round pick.
Really?
There's a fun fact for you. Yeah.
Fun fact. Pedigree matters.
Russell. Oh, his dad is also RJ Maryland. Or no, Russell Maryland.
All right.
Wait. Not 1st-round pick. 1st overall pick.
Wait, what year?
1991. Russell Maryland, defensive tackle.
Oh, I was going to say
10 seasons for the Cowboys, Raiders, and Packers.
strange that we don't know his name. I mean, not that we're...
He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler.
Damn, dog.
Played for Miami.
So that's why people
90s.
like him. They like him because of the pedigree. That's it. Jeez, man. That was
too.
Yeah. What does he have verified testing?
He probably does if I can find it, but I know the biggest thing for me is like I know like the Devy rankers like Maryland a lot, and so I'm sure there's some reason for that, and I'm trusting them kind of blindly right now because I didn't really do the research on SMU.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. I think Brady Hunt is probably underrated. Is
what I track in high school.
Oh, did he? All right, so yeah. that's a thing for sure. You're that size, you're running track, but can you put on enough weight? I mean, 220 to 245. That's doable, I guess. Kind of a stretch, but I'm with you. Kyle, that was a lot, man. We just did a lot of work. That was the longest show we've done. It's an hour and 40, bro.
A lot of teams in this conference.
A lot of teams, and
I think we went there 14 teams.
Yeah, although, I think the new rule is anything over 12 we get a split.
Although I think I brought up like one Navy player the entire time, and I spent 2 seconds on him. So
they like barely count, but yeah, I can't imagine anyone sitting through an hour and 41 minutes of us just talking about names and throwing on a big board. You know,
I think this is peak content.
Peak content. Somebody will, and they will leave us a comment as they like and subscribe because we are here for you.
Especially if you're still watching at this point while I'm watching a baseball game. Someone's
watching right now. Well, we appreciate you guys. If you like this, you like this work, hit us up. We'll send you a copy. We'll send you a link to the big board we're working on. Happy to share. I mean, you can see most of it as we're doing this, but if you want your own sheet to work off of, let me know. I also have my own personal big board I'm drafting off of right now, but it's not as exhaustive as this. This is the real deal, McGee. But yeah, we need your support. And as always, follow me on Twitter. I want to hear your takes. Follow Kyle. Check out Kyle's ratings on the Undroppables, where he has actual useful Devy rankings.
If you search Devy rankings on Google, it's probably like the third result, I think. So.
Third result, and it's just Kyle's rankings.
Right there above Fantasy Pros, baby.
For a good reason. Gosh. How's Tennessee doing? Are they winning?
It's 1-0 in the third inning, and we got 2 men aboard right now.
I hope you guys win, man. Hope you take it home. Excited for you to see your boys in the college football playoff, college baseball. What do they call it? The championship?
World Series.
World Series.
Which is like the top.
Series, though?
It's the top 8 teams go to the college World Series in baseball instead of top.
It's kind of a misnomer.
Yeah, it's the best college teams in the world.
Oh, that's true.
That's
true. Okay, my man.
Is the MLB World Series really the World Series?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of a misnomer, right? It's more like the North American Series. What are you going to do? It would be fun to see an actual like a baseball league with now some of the teams in Japan and stuff are getting actually pretty good.
Yeah, they'd still lose.
Probably.
They actually might beat the A's.
That's not saying much, my man. All right. From Eric, from Kyle, we appreciate you guys. We're signing off. Stay on for the next one. Be doing some more freshman content, some more of our sleeper values, and of course, we're going to get into the P5 schools soon. We're pumped.
A lot of players popping up at the top of the Devy lists.
Yeah, this list is going to look real different real quick. So we're going to sign off for this one, but we appreciate you guys. We hope to see you again soon.